Hello everybody and welcome to the DevWorm channel, where I want to go over knockback because many people have been asking about knockback. So I thought I would make this video and explain everything, and we will create an example after explaining and how knockback works. So let's get started with the video and learn what knockback is and how it works in Godot. But before we get started, I just want to ask if you can go down there and hit that subscribe button so more inspiring game developers can learn to make their own Godot games as well. But what is knockback? Well, knockback is like a basic physics where if a player is hit or something happens to the character that triggers knockback, then the character will be pushed aside pretty quickly, but not too far. Or the enemy is pushed aside, or anything's really just pushed aside quickly. The most popular example of knockback happens in Minecraft. The player hits the creeper and he goes backwards, just like this clip here. But we are not in a 3D game, so 2D knockback would look something like this, which is going to be the example or the project that we're gonna make in this video. So how do you add this to your game? Well, let's do it. So to get started right now, this is kind of what we have, and it's very, very simple, right? We have a player, a basic enemy that just moves and bounces off the walls. Very, very basic, right? So let me show you what we got, just so you know. But so in our world, we have the ground, which is going to be this piece. We have the left wall, which is just a sprite collision shape, and it's all just copy and pasted, right? These are all the exact same, just rotated, right? So it's just a sprite and a collision shape. Super easy. And then for our player, we have a sprite and a collision shape. Very simple, just a basic icon. And then for our script, it is, you know, very basic player movement, right? And if you do want to check out this video where I go over this and kind of explain this exact script in more depth, this is the video right here, and it is on the channel, so you can go and check that out if you don't have a player in your game. And our enemy, which is going to be right here, our enemy is the same as our player. It's just a sprite and a collision shape, just the red, and the script for the enemy is this right here, and I also have a video for that, so it's right here on the screen now. But if you do want to go check out those videos and you're not at the point where we are, where we just have a basic player and a basic enemy, then I would recommend going to check out those videos just so you can get this exact thing. And then now we're going to go and implement knockback into our enemy and player, right? So the enemy gets knocked back when the player attacks the enemy, right? So to start, we have our enemy, and he's always moving left or right based on this code, and he just hits the wall and bounces off. But this also happens whenever he's in the air. As you can see, you saw that right there, right? So if we play just the enemy scene, he takes off whenever he's in the air, and that's not good, right? Because when we knock back, we want to stop movement so we can make our own movement, right? Just the knockback movement. We don't want the movement of him going back and forth between the walls. We don't want that to affect the knockback effect, right? So we need to make sure that he only moves like this if he is on the wall, right? So what we can do is we can take this exact code and we can put this into a if is on the floor statement. So if is on floor, boom. So if is on the floor, then we will do this. But our Godot has no idea what the floor is, right? So we need to kind of like, we need to add an up vector so our game knows like which way's up, which way's down, and it helps with that, right? So we can go var and then up, and then our up variable is going to be equal to a vector 2, and we want it to be equal to -1. The coordinates of 0, -1. This shows that this is going to be this way is upwards, right? So if this is up, then obviously the opposite of this will be down. So then it will know what the floor is, and then we go to our move and slide, and then we can add up to our move and slide. Okay, so now if we go to our world and we play, we're gonna see it gets all messed up in the wall, right? Because it takes off instantly. And to fix this, we can go to our is on the wall, and then we can do motion.x equals direction. So it's basically going to, so if it's on the right side of the wall, it's going to move it left by 1 unit, right? So now if we play, it's going pretty quick. So we're going to turn the speed down, but you can see that it actually bounces off the wall this time, and it wasn't doing that before. So we'll just go to like 20 speed maybe. Okay, no, what? Let's fix this. Let's fix this. So in our motion, we have plus equal. Let's just go to equal, right? And then we need to up our speed again. And then there we go. Now we got a good enemy. So this is the code. So now we only move if we're on the wall. As we can see, if we go to our enemy scene, we're not on the ground, so the enemy does not move left or right, which is good, right? So everything there is working. So now that we have that, then we need to add a hitbox to our enemy and an attack box to our player, so we know when our player attacks our enemy. Then we can call the knockback, so the enemy shows that it's been knocked back. Okay, so for the hitbox on our enemy, we're gonna want to go to our enemy, add an area 2D, and then inside the area 2D, we want to add a collision shape 2D. And the collision shape, we're gonna make it a square, and then we just want this to be like slightly bigger than the, slightly bigger than the enemy, kind of like that, right? And that's good, right? And then this area, we can just name it hitbox, and everything right there is fine, right? So that's our hitbox. All this square is our hitbox, and that's how easy it is to make the hitbox. But now we need the weapon, right? So this is going to be a little bit harder, but we go to our player, same exact thing. We can do an area 2D, and then we can add a collision shape 2D, and then we can make this collision shape. We're going to want to make this collision shape a square, and we'll do something like this, right? We also want to disable the collision shape because we don't want it to be on all the time. Only whenever it turns on, if something, like if another body's inside this area here, which is like on the sides of our player, then it's gonna say, okay, if something's in there, it's gonna be the enemy, and then we'll check, like, is it the enemy that's in there? And if it is, then the enemy will have knockback effect onto it, right? So we can name this the weapon, collision shape 2D, and then we want to go to our player and we want to add a animated, animation player, not animated sprite. So we'll go to our player, animation player, and then we can go here, and then we can click here, new animation, and we can just name this attack. We'll make it like way shorter than this, like 0.3. And then, so at the very start, we want our animation to be enabled, right? So at 0, 0, we want to go to our collision shape, we want to go to our collision shape. As soon as we start the animation, we want it to be on. So we'll create this. So we'll create it as enabled. So it's enabled. And then we'll go to the very end. And then at the very end of our animation, which is going to be at 0.3, we can click on the little check mark over here so we can disable the collision shape, and then we'll disable it. So when we play our animation, you see it's enabled, then it disables again. So boom, boom. And we have our collision shape disabled by default, so it's always going to be disabled, but when we play the animation, then it will turn on for 0.3 seconds, then it will go back off, if that makes sense, right? So if we just play this like animation, you can kind of see how it goes on and off. That's just the animation, and our animation is called attack, and we'll implement this in the code here in a minute. So now we need some code because we got to see if the enemy overlaps here, and then if it overlaps with the enemy's hitbox that we just made, then we'll attack and then play the knockback, right? So we'll go to our player script, and then we can make some new variables. So we'll just go under here, and we'll make var, we need knockback direction, and then that's going to be equal to a vector 2. And then we also have, we're going to need a little bit of a wait, and we don't want to, make a timer node, because it's kind of like, it makes everything more confusing because you got more nodes over here, and it's just like, it ends up becoming too much, right? So we'll just make knockback wait, and then we'll just do like -1, -1, -1 in the physics process function. And then once that hits 0, then we'll say, okay, now we can knock back again, right? If that makes sense. So now we'll go into our physics process. We want an if input dot is action just pressed, and then we'll go UI accept. This will be our attack button, and then we'll get our animation player, and then we'll play the animation, and we'll play the animation attack. And then let's see, so we're gonna need a function, so we'll go to whoops, where are we? Actually, let's look at this first. So if we go to our world, we can go to debug, we can do visible collision shapes. Now we can play. And you see, this is our attack collision, right? And you'll see that once we click enter, it turns on for that split second, right? And that would be our like attack, right? So that's all good. And then we can close out of this, and then we can go down. Let's create a brand new function. So under the physics process, function attack with knockback. Let's see. Actually, let's not do this. Let's not make a new function. Let's just go into our physics process function. We'll go under all this, and then we'll do for body in our weapon dot get overlapping bodies. And it's only going to do this when our body is active, right? So it's only active when we play this animation. So this is I'll try and explain this in a better way in just a second. Then we'll do knockback wait. So if it's less than or equal to 0, which means it's counted down all the way, then so this means like we had a little bit of wait. It's gonna be like a 0.3 second wait time. So it's not going to be long, but that's just so it doesn't like, when we hit knockback, it doesn't hit it like 6 times, because that's what it would do, right? So we'll do this, and then we'll do and body.get name, and then this is just going to make sure it's an enemy. Get name, and then equals enemy. And to do this, we'll have to make a variable in the we'll print knockback. We have to make a variable inside the enemy script, and this will check like if the variable that's called name is equal to enemy, then we know that's the enemy that's inside the area. Then we'll carry out with the knockback. So knockback wait equals 10, and then under all this we can do knockback wait minus equals 1. Or we'll just there. So we don't want this inside the for loop, but we want all this stuff inside the for loop. So this basically goes for body in weapon.get overlapping bodies, which this is, it's going to get whatever bodies inside of this zone here. So we can see when we hit it, it comes on and everything. Now, okay, so it should print knockback, but the only reason it's not printing knockback because we haven't like, it doesn't know this is our enemy. So we can go to our enemy. We can go up here. We can go constant name equals and then enemy. So now the name of this object is the enemy, and over here in our player script, you see we got for body in weapon.get overlapping bodies. So it's going to get all the bodies that are overlapping our weapon, which it's only going to get them when the weapon is active, right? And then so if knockback wait, so basically if we can do our knockback and the body that's inside the area is our enemy, then we're going to print knockback. That's all we're going to do right now is print knockback. But eventually we'll signal this, and then it will go to our enemy and tell it to like do knockback, right? And then we'll reset our timer so we don't like get spammed. But if we go to our world, and then we see, you can see it prints knockback down there. And everything's working fine. It's printing it twice for some reason. Sometimes it's printing it twice. That's weird. We'll have to go through it here in a minute. And I think that's because it's entering and then exiting. I think. Let's see. So it comes, boom, and it hits it twice every once in a while. And that's pretty easy. We can just go to our player, and then we can this collision shape here, we can extend it. We'll extend it like this far. So extend it pretty far. Now once we play it, we can see okay. Whatever I just said was a lie. Don't do that. Extend the wait time. That's what we got to do. We'll extend the wait time by like, go to 50. Right, and then wait time up here, 50. Now we'll see. Now it should only print it once. Yeah, right. Now it only prints it once. So okay, that's better. That's a much better fix. So yeah, do that. Just increase the wait time. We go to our player weapon. Let's lower this a little bit. Okay, so yeah, that's a better fix. So now we go to our player, and then you see that it prints knockback and everything, right? So now we need a signal to our enemy, so our enemy does knockback. So we'll go up here in our player script, signal, and then we'll just do signal knockback, right? And then over here, instead of this printing, we'll just do emit signal, and then knockback. So it'll emit our signal knockback. And then let's go to our world. Let's click on our player. Let's go to node. Let's click on knockback, and then let's signal this to our enemy script. So basically, when we get the function, which means we need to do our knockback, then we'll do in here. Let's make some variables first. Up here, we got our variable knockback direction, and then we got var knockback. This is just going to be a true or false here. This is var knockback. So we got function on player knockback. Let's see. So we need variable player direction, because we're going to need our player direction as well. And then we'll just do get parent dot get node, and then player. So this is going to be our player, and then we'll just get dot direction, which is a variable in our player, right? So this is the variable that's in our player script. So it basically, that's just our player's direction, whatever way our player is facing. Because we want our enemy to be going in the, we want our enemy to get knocked back in the same direction that our player is facing, if that makes sense, right? So now we got direction, then we got knock back, because if it gets knocked back in the same way our player is facing, then that means it's going to get knocked back away from the player, not towards the player, if that makes sense. Hopefully that does. But we'll get knocked back, and we'll just equal this to our player direction. I mean, we could just do knockback direction here, but I just want to make it look cleaner. So knockback direction, and then we got our direction of our player, or the direction of our enemy, which is the main thing, is going to be equal to the opposite, right? So this direction here, dir, is our main one, which is being used the entire time. We just want to go the opposite of that, right? So we want direction to be equal to the player's direction, but the opposite of the player's direction. So if the player is facing right, we want our enemy to get get knocked back to the right side, which it will. And then we want, once our enemy lands, we want it to be coming back towards the player, if that makes sense. So let me show you. So let me just do this a little bit better. So knockback equals true, because this is not going to be used during our knockback. We're going to use knockback direction during the knockback. So knockback true. So this means in our physics process, we can go up here and we can do if knockback is equal to true, which if we're doing a knockback, it will be equal to true. Then we want motion.y to equal to like -500, so we get popped up in the air a little bit. Then we want motion.x to be equal to 500 and times our knockback direction. And then we want knockback to be equal to false. And that should be it. If we play, let me show you if I can explain it a little bit better now. It doesn't work. Let's see. So why is this? So dir is on kinematic body player.gd. So dir is obviously not a variable on our player. Is it not? Okay, so it's not. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so we don't even have that. Okay, so let's make the direction. So variable direction for our player is going to be equal to 1 off base. And then we want direction. So if we're going right, we want direction to equal 1. And if we're going left, we want direction to equal -1. Now, if we test it, there you go. Now we got knockback. So knockbacks, so it hits in the opposite way. And then it will come straight back towards the player. And does it work in both ways? Yeah, it does. That, I mean, that's knockback. That looks like pretty decent knockback. And then we can obviously go up to debug, turn the visible collision shapes off, play it, and you'll see that everything looks a lot smoother. Now, obviously, if you had animations, which like when the enemy got knocked back, he played like a flying animation or getting a falling animation or something, and the player had like a little weapon that hit it, it'd look a lot better. But that is how you create simple knockback. And if you want to learn to make the enemy follow you based on like the player's position and everything, there's going to be this video, which is on the channel, and you can check that out as well. But yeah, this is basic knockback, and obviously you can get more advanced. I just want to keep this simple, just the basics of knockback. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you learned something new, and I hope this helped you on your Godot journey. If you're having a problem understanding or the code's not working for you, then please let me know in the comments, and I'll be glad to help you out. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. And until next time, have a safe and a wonderful rest of your day.